Hey, Yetta, do the fundamentals still work?
In real estate, they certainly do.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
We are excited to welcome you to another episode of Life's Inside Track. I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And together we get to share techniques, thoughts, tips, tools, and some tactics that we all deserve. You, I, everyone, so we can turn our house into home, our families thrive, and we live the best life possible. That includes living the best life possible in relation to your real estate. And so we're going to consider this time, we're going to do something a little different this time, actually. We're going to consider that we've learned that the fundamentals stay the same in real estate, even if, probably in everything, actually. Even if legislation and tactics and strategy changes, the fundamental ones stay the same.
Yeah, it's back to basics many times, right? Even when the rules change, quite often the fundamentals don't.
Right. So one of the fundamentals, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just thinking of a story.
Oh, but I already have so many of those in my head.
Mr. Wooden, Coach Wooden.
Yes.
Every year, I mean, he's teaching championship teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the lesson he teaches them? The first lesson he teaches his players every year.
I don't remember what it is, but I know it's something super basic, like how to put on their jersey or tie up their shoes or something super
You're
simple.
so close. It's how to put their socks on.
There you go.
Because if you don't put your socks on correctly, you'll get blisters. And as soon as a basketball player gets blisters on their feet, they're no good. You can't play a great game of basketball when your feet are sore with blisters.
That's perfect.
That's a fundamental.
That is a fundamental. So where we're going to talk about fundamentals is in relation to real estate. And this one's going to sound maybe fascinating because the first time I heard it, I thought they don't know what they're talking about. And yet they actually did. And who they are is coaches, our coaches at the time. So kind of like Coach Wooden.
Mm-hmm.
And the coach said, you cannot, Ken and Yetta Dekker, over communicate. I was like, what? What do you mean I can't over communicate? And what we've learned over the past, 35 years, but more importantly, we're looking at kind of what are those lessons we've relearned or ingrained in a deeper way into our being that we've learned from our clients, that we've learned from the experiences we've had and evaluating those experiences.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's set the framework a little bit because we're now about 4.5 weeks into the new TRESA rules that real estate agents are working under, right? And that's why we thought, well, let's see how we're doing business, whether it's really changed that much.
Even though it's the biggest changes in organized real estate in 100 years.
Yes. And the disclosures are different, but we're still disclosing, right? The forms are different, but they're still forms. And primarily they have the same kind of content. Just stuff is shifted. They've added some words to fit the legislation. There's a lot more disclosure.
And a lot sooner.
And buyers actually get the choice to make sooner whether they want to be represented or self-represent. And so all that's sooner, but is similar. And then we thought, well, what about the fundamentals, right? And that's where you're coming around the communication. You can't over communicate. And one of the things, like when we do this radio show, is sometimes things might seem repetitive to us.
They
right?
often seem repetitive to us.
And we work diligently at bringing fresh material, a fresh way of presenting material, because the fundamentals of real estate haven't changed, right? And we were just saying, how long have we done the radio show on CHRI?
13 years.
13 years. So the fundamentals of when we got in business, I got in 30 years ago, and you got in 35 years ago, the fundamentals of communication haven't changed. People haven't changed that much. They still like to be communicated with.
Right. And they still want to know. So when we say can't over communicate, even if I tell you something one more time, then maybe you need to hear it. It is still going to feel good that you've been reinforced or the idea's been reinforced versus the concept. The other alternative is the biggest complaint when there's surveys done. One of the biggest complaints from clients in relation to realtors is that they don't tell them enough stuff.
Right. And I'm guilty as charged, Your Honor. I am typically a person of few words. Unless you put a camera or a microphone in front of me, then my mouth runneth over. But in a business relationship, I tend to talk less than maybe I should. And so I've got to keep that in the background of my mind is, do they feel communicated to? Are they aware where in the process we are and what the next step is? Because it's intuitive to me. I've done it for so many years. The next step is obvious and it's simple. I got to remember to bring my client along with me.
Right. So one of our core phrases is actually that. The next thing is, right?
Yes.
The next thing is we're going to remove the lockbox off the property. The next thing is you're going to get a building inspection or there's going to be a building inspection. During that building inspection, you probably don't want to be home because the people that are doing the inspection and the realtor that's representing the buyer really doesn't want you around. And also it's a trap sometimes to hear all the negative things about your house because that's the purpose of the inspection, although they'll say good things too. And then you may not agree with everything the inspector says. So it's just an opportunity for chaos.
Right.
And yet communicating the process and what to expect can't be overdone.
And while we're talking about communication,
Yeah.
we're communicating to you. And sometimes it's like shouting out into a chasm. And the only thing we hear is our voice echoing in the room. And it would be lovely if you spoke back to us. So communicate with us. And the way you can do that is sending us an email at together@dekkerteam.com.
And we've also started sharing just exclusively for our really CHRI listeners and our Life's Inside Track listeners, because our cell numbers are not out there for public consumption. Well, they're not.
Well, saying they're on the radio show and they're not public consumption is pretty...
What I'm saying is it's not in our listings. It's not in because we want it to go through the team so that the right person can take care of you. Having said that, because you are in the community, as you move closer into the community, you get greater access. And so if you want to text a question, the point of communicating isn't a one-way street. That's part of the lesson learned. It's a two-way. It's not just echoing or putting out information. It's what do we get back and what's the dialogue that's exchanged? True information being exchanged.
I think they're waiting for your cell number.
613-863-6058. Was that over communicating? 613-863-6058.
Right. And another fundamental is whenever you're doing something that you don't generally do is to get a informed guide or coach on your side, right? And we've done that through business significantly through the years as we get the next guide or coach that we need for this season. We go look for them, we find them, we hire them, we pay them, and we get great results because of it.
Exactly. The other fundamental, because I can't leave this one alone, is caring for the details and making sure it's easy for you to understand what is happening with all the details.
That's right. So what you want to do is leverage the Dekker Team's extensive experience to help you build wealth wisely. And we're honored to be positioning you to build wealth wisely in real estate because it's much more than just about the money.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward